choppers in the office, crowded nest, and earbud people. We got it for you straight ahead on the Use Your Head podcast. I cannot find... There it is. Okay, we're ready to go. This is the Use Your Head podcast. John McClain with you from Dallas, Texas, for this 7th episode of our sophomore season. Glad to have you along. This is the show where we use our heads together. We take the news of the day, the issues of the day, the trends of the day. That's what a lot of this stuff is. It's kind of what the culture's doing, you know, what the new normal is or what have you. And we evaluate it. We use our God-given ability to use our heads and figure out exactly what's going on. And so I'm going to do that with 3 topics each show here. We try to do this once a week. Sometimes I fail. I will own that. But I try to be here with you midweek. Try to record on Tuesdays every week. And in fact, this is Tuesday, April the 1st. And I am happy to tell you that this, I will guarantee you, is an April Fool's joke free zone. Yeah. I'm not into practical jokes. I'm not that guy. So there's not going to be any fake stories, or anything just to get a rise out of you. I don't like that kind of thing. So, not judging. If you're into that, if you're a prankster, then have a good time, but be nice. Don't deliberately hurt anybody. Or just keep it, stay in your lane on April Fool's Day. But we don't do that kind of thing here. By the way, yes, I'm aware the Brewers are having a disastrous start to the season. Look. Couple of things. I think, and this is my own analysis using my head. What I think is going on here is that Brewers manager Pat Murphy, who is a very good manager, reigning National League Manager of the Year, is saying, you know what we're going to do? We're going to sneak up. See, we're going to get all of our runs out of the way. We're going to give up all the runs for the season early on, and then we're just going to plow through the rest of the year and win the division again. Maybe win the pennant. Maybe win the first World Series in Milwaukee. I think that's what's going on. That's why they gave up almost 50 runs the first 4 games of the year. So that's, they say hope springs eternal. So anyway, we'll keep, and look, they're not the only winless team. Look, the Braves are 0-5 going into action today. The Twinkies are 0-4. So we've got some company down there. But anyway, it's a long season. Good luck to your team. I hope you're having a great week. 3 great topics. Our email address, john@useyourheadpodcast.com. That's available to you anytime. And with that, let's head off to topic number 1. They talk about the black helicopter crowd, people that are always think that, the paranoia kind of thing. Well, helicopters are in the news, but a different kind. The rise of helicopter managers fuels task masking by burned out workers. This is from the business journals, bizjournals.com, B-I-Z, bizjournals.com, if you want to check it out. This is an interesting article. This is written by Andy Medici, who's a senior reporter. Here's what it says. Burned out workers have a new problem to deal with. Helicopter managers. The label applies to managers who use a raft of surveillance and software tools to keep a microscopically close eye on the daily tasks of their workers and how they use their time. It's behavior that's likely to backfire on employers, though. A recent report by Owl Labs found that 46% of workers said their company had increased the use of monitoring software over the past year, and a similar share of workers said monitoring was a top concern of theirs. This level of scrutiny is already causing fear and anxiety for workers who are uncertain about how their work will come under review and the actions management could take, said Owl Labs CEO Frank Weishaupt in an email. Companies evaluating their own monitoring and management practices should keep in mind that excessive monitoring often backfires. How? It damages morale and encourages what Weishaupt called performative work, busy work, or fake tasks designed to make workers seem productive to the software and the helicopter managers who are watching. That falls into the same category as the new task masking trend, in which employees use seemingly productive make-work tasks to appear busy. 86% of workers surveyed for the Owl Labs report believe companies should be required by law to disclose how they monitor their workers, showing a strong desire for transparency. Companies should instead offer flexible and remote work options to allow employees to complete tasks when and where it suits them, and trust that their employees are getting their work done, Weishaupt said. Additionally, they should invest in programs to create supportive, not helicopter managers. All right, there's more here. We'll stop. You get the gist. So helicopter, we hear about helicopter parenting. That's been a thing. Parents that follow their kids with their phones, and know exactly where they are, tracking them. And, I'm not going to comment on that. It's a dangerous world out there. And every parent has to decide, what level of freedom they're going to give their child at what age. That's a whole different discussion, but it's the same kind of thing. Now we have helicopter managers and, micromanagement has been a thing for a long time. Nobody likes to be micromanaged, mostly nobody. They like to be trusted. If you're being paid as a professional, then you have the expectation that your manager says, all right, listen, you're going to be doing this project and this is the deliverable date and I expect this level of quality. Now go get them. And you do it. And you don't expect them to hover over your shoulder all the time, like a helicopter, over your shoulder all the time going, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you doing that right? This drives people nuts. Because it's a show of a lack of trust. And so what's happening now, of course, with the advancements in software and computers and, they're spying on you, Now, there's two schools of thought to approach this from, right? On the one hand is the employee saying, well, listen, like I just pointed out, you hired me as a pro. So shouldn't you just let me do my job and I'll get her done? If you trust me to get her done, if not, then you might as well kick me to the curb. All right. So that's one school of thought. In other words, don't tread on me, leave me alone. The other school of thought is, listen, you're working in my office, on my computer, on my software, and I'm paying you to do my work, to my project. I have every right to watch you and to monitor you. So, depending on which side of the spectrum you fall on. Well, when I used my head on this article, look, I've worked in offices before, and I've had micromanagers, and they drove me bats. I'm one of those people, look, if you don't trust me to do the job, I just soon you fire me. And I'll go find, and there's a reason why I've worked for myself for a good part of my career. I like to get stuff done. And I don't like, having to deal with this, hovering umbrella management structure. That's just not how I roll. But when I used my head here, here's what I thought. This comes down to a question. Why are managers hiring people? Why do you hire someone at all? I mean, let's say you're an entrepreneur and you start a company, and I don't care what it is, make something up. And you start a company and you start doing well. You're a one-man shop, you start doing well. Now you can afford to hire some help so you can grow, right? Why do you do that? Why do you hire? Well, I just gave away the answer. It's to grow. But there's two ways of looking at that answer to the question. The reason you hire people, is it A, to have them follow a process that you created? Listen, I know the best way to accomplish this, and this is how I want you to do it. I think of McDonald's. McDonald's, if you did time at Mickey D's, I did. Hi, my name is John. I'm a recovering McDonald's employee. Look, they have a process for everything, and you must follow it. There is no thinking. There is a process for everything. In fact, if you try to improve the process, you are reprimanded. That's how things work there. So that's one way. That's one reason you hire people, to be a part of the machine, if you will. Or B, do you hire people to get things done and help the company make money? Guess which one I choose. I'm a B guy, right? When I was working in radio and I had the responsibility of hiring DJs, these people would come in with all these just fabulously crafted answers to my interview questions. And I would have to stop them and say, listen, I don't care about any of that. You're here for one reason, and that is to help this radio station grow so the owner will make money. Because when the owner makes money, guess what? He's happy with me because I'm helping him make money. That's the reason we're here. All right. So do your job and don't cause problems and don't cause us to lose audience, which in radio equates to money. And I think we've lost a lot of that sensibility. We're so caught up, and maybe this is part of the machine age. I don't know, but we're so caught up in process. Not that it's always bad. Some things are complex and you need process, but it can become an obsession. It can become an idol. If you want to use the spiritual side of the argument, it can become something that's worshiped, and then you lose focus on what the mission is. How did corporate America, when I thought about this, I just wondered, how did corporate America get so far off track? All right. I think there's a couple of reasons. There's this idiotic idea that making money is somehow wrong. The business, you're just out there to make profits. Yeah. If I didn't care about that, I'd be sitting on a beach somewhere, or surfing on my parents' couch in the basement. Yeah, I'm here to make money. That's called livelihood because I need to buy food and I need to pay rent or mortgage. And I'd like to have a vehicle and maybe save a little something so when I'm too old to work, I won't die of starvation. All right, that's life. That's what you do. And so, yes, there's nothing wrong with making money. That's not necessarily greed. So I think that's part of the reason why we've gotten off track. I think another part of it is this, and we'll wrap the topic with this idea. Meritocracy is where it's at, and we've gotten away from that. Look, if employees are goofing off and they're making up busy work to fool you into thinking that you're working, if they walk fast down the hall and they look busy or look annoyed because if they're doing that and you're onto it, get rid of them because they're not helping you make money. All right. And I know if you can't bring them around, get rid of them. It's tough to find people, sure. But if you're netting zero, if you're looking at your books and you're netting zero with this person, you might as well not be paying to net zero. You're better off not paying to get nothing. At least that's what I think of when I use my head. I don't know. Ah, yes, office politics. They've done very successful TV shows about this stuff because it matters to people and we need to talk about it. John McClain with you with the Use Your Head podcast, passing a half hour of your life. Hope you think it's worth it. I sure enjoy being with you. Topic number 2, I called Crowded Nest. All right. Crowded Nest. I found this article on newsnation.com. 50% of parents financially supporting adult children, says a survey. This is from Patrick Georgievich. I hope I said his name right, Patrick. I hope I did. Here's the story. Even when children are out of the nest, some parents are still contributing to their children's livelihoods. According to a survey of 1,000 U.S. parents of adult children by Savings.com, 50% of parents are helping offset financial pressures. 50%. That's half if you're scoring at home. The article continues. The average amount given to adult children among those surveyed was $1,474 a month, a 6% increase from the 2023 survey results. Of those contributing, 83% help with grocery payments, 65% assist with cell phone bills, and 46% with vacations. While the average contribution to millennials decreased slightly, a significant increase in support for Generation Zers pushed the overall average higher, the survey said. Among parents still in the workforce, they contribute 2.3 times more to their children's lifestyle, on average $1,589, than to their monthly retirement savings, which came to $673. All right, I'm going to read that again. All right, let this sink in. Among parents still in the workforce, they contribute 2.3 times more to their children's lifestyles, on average almost $1,600, than to their own monthly retirement savings, which comes to about $673. Article continues. We've seen in recent years the ongoing need to financially support struggling adult children is placing significant strain on many parents' financial security, said Beth Klongpayabal, the study's lead author. This concerning pattern may face additional pressure if economic conditions worsen in the coming months, she added. All right, this is appalling to me. And I have all kinds of notes. I'm not going to get to all of them. I'm running a little behind. But here's first of all, look, if you're not financially independent, all right, and I'm not saying that you don't take a nice Christmas present, from your parents. Let's say they say, we would like to send you and your wife on a vacation just because we love. That's different. But if you're sponging, all right, you're still in the nest. I mean, the article starts off by saying that even when children are out of the nest, I would argue that if you're sponging, you're still in the nest. Maybe not physically, but you're still in the nest. I'm so tired of hearing that the economy is to blame for all this. That is 100%, to quote Colonel Potter from MASH, bull cookies. It's bourgeois. It's not the economy. Have you been out lately? How many new Range Rovers you see rolling around? How many people are paying big bucks to go see big league baseball games, packing the house, taking big time vacations? Hotels are full. I mean, but look, yes, there are people that are struggling, and I'm not trying to be insensitive to those folks. There are people that are out of work, or what, but it's not the economy. All right. That's a cop out. It's easy to pick on these kids. All right. Which I've already fallen into doing. But what I thought about when I used my head here. Oh, and by the way, I don't care if you're 35 years old. You're still a kid if you're sponging off your folks. All right. And I really don't care if you're offended. Fight me on it. You're still a kid. Parents are enabling here. All right. If you're a mom or a dad, and look, I know this is tough. All right. Well, I couldn't say no to my child. They're my child. All right. Listen, hear me out. You're enabling if you're not pushing them out of the nest, right? The old image of the bird shoving the baby bird out of the nest and they fall. But right before they hit the ground, they start to flap because they know it's going to hurt, that kind of thing. It's called tough love for a reason, mom and dad, because it's tough. It's not supposed to be easy. But here's the thing, kiddo that can't support your lifestyle without mom and dad giving, it just boils me. Here's the thing. Mom and dad are going to be gone one day. All right. And by the way, because of you, they're probably not going to have anything to leave you because you're spending it now. So it might be time, gentle suggestion of tough love here. It might be time, if you're one of these, because here's the great thing about life. You can always change. It's never too late. As long as your toes are still tapping and you're breathing air, you can change for the better. It might be time to sit down with a good old-fashioned pencil and paper and do something different. If you're part of this 50%, it might be time to sit down and do something different. Practice self-denial. It hurts at first, but after a while, it is you'll discover blessing from it. If nothing else, the blessing of seeing your parents enjoy their lifetime of toil and of feeding and diapering you for 18 years or more, and probably paying for your education or part of it, and all the things that mom and dad did, financially and otherwise, to continue to have them support you because your lifestyle just can't make it without them. I think it's time to maybe do a little soul searching. Take paper and pencil and do something different. Parents, 90 days should be enough. If you're going to tell your kid, listen, I'm cutting you off in 90 days, you better get busy. If you're extra soft though, right? Or if this tough love thing's really hard for you, then give them 6 months, 180 days. That should be enough time to make the changes to get them finally out of the nest for real. Boy, he's really being a jerk today. So insensitive. I'm sorry, but I care when I see parents sacrificially giving, and I just see too many of these kids, Peter Panning their way through life. Look, none of us want to grow up, but you have to. So anyway, enough about that. Topic number 3. Earbud people. Now, this is interesting. We talked about this one before, but I found another story because if you can't tell, I'm fascinated by science. People that are out there, you smart people that look at something in the world and go, I wonder why that is. And they start digging in and studying, and then others glob on, and now you've got a whole field. This thing about music and how it affects the brain is interesting to me. For one thing, I'm a music lover. I have a vast record collection. I've always had them. I was a disc jockey for years, mainly because I love music. I play the guitar. I sort of play the piano. I really abuse the piano, but I try. I love to sing. I love music. Music has a huge impact on my life. And then, music of the church takes me to places that I can't describe. I'm fascinated by this stuff, and there's a lot of science happening. found yet another article at discovermagazine.com, or sorry, Discover Magazine, my bad, discovermagazine.com, and it's entitled thusly, How Does Music Impact Your Brain and Workflow? Now, we've talked about this before, but this article is a little different. This is by Joshua Rapp-Learn, and here's what Joshua says. Your body may move to the music on the dance floor, but how does your brain function when listening to tunes while you work? A lot of people swear one way or another. Electronic music may speed up the pace of typing for some, while others just find it distracting. In fact, the question of whether music helps you get your work done or hinders you may be highly individualistic. However, new research shows that certain types of upbeat, groovy music without lyrics may improve people's moods while speeding up their ability to complete tasks. We think people's mood improves and that allows them to work faster, says Pablo, I wrote down how to pronounce his name, Pablo Ripalles. He's a cognitive neuroscientist at New York University. In a study published in the PLOS One, Ripalles and his colleagues recruited 200 volunteers and split them into 4 groups, each listening to a different type of sound for 10-minute stretches. They then asked each participant how they felt and had them complete a task that required their full attention and concentration to see whether there were any differences in their performance. One of these sounds was workflow music produced by Spiritune called Anxious to Energized. One was just a recording of office white noise. One was a mixture of popular rock, pop, and rap. And the final was a deep focus playlist pulled from Spotify. The test showed that no one group was more accurate at completing the task. Changes in music didn't seem to affect ability, at least on average. But the people who listened to the workflow music did finish the task a little faster on average than those who listened to the other sounds. Ripalles says that this is likely because the mood of these people also improved while listening to the workflow music. If you look at the changes in mood before and after listening to music, the only ones who improved their mood were the ones listening to workflow music, he says. The better their mood was, the faster they were at the task. It's more difficult to say exactly why the workflow music improved their efficiency, but Ripalles has a couple of theories. People didn't like all the 4 types of sounds equally, for example. Most participants reported not liking the office white noise track. I bet. Meanwhile, some people liked the playlist based on Billboard top hits, but others didn't. The latter likely came down to personal taste. People who liked rap wouldn't necessarily like rock or pop, for example. Most respondents liked the Deep Focus Spotify playlist, which basically consisted of neutral ambient sound type tracks without lyrics. The trouble was, Ripalles says, it wasn't groovy. The Spiritune workflow music also has no lyrics but blends elements of funk. It makes people want to move, Ripalles says. The inspiration to dance or move may be an important factor that goes further than just inducing the right kind of mood. In order for music to improve our cognition, it has to both improve our mood but also increase our arousal levels, Ripalles says, adding that arousal refers to the way music awakens and energizes people. These factors may help to keep people stimulated, which helps them focus on their work, he says. All right, we'll stop right there. This is so interesting to me. Mood. All right, and this is not a surprise to anyone, right? You wake up on the wrong side of the bed, you can pretty much guarantee, unless you find a way to flip the switch, you're going to have a rough day. All right, it's just our mood affects how we process the rest of the day. And people have a real awareness of this nowadays. There's a lot of people, myself included, who start out the day with 30 minutes of prayer. I mean, that's what I do. As an Anglican believer, I engage in the daily office of morning prayer every day. I can't start my day without it. It's like breakfast. I just do it. And it informs the rest of my day. It lifts me, it lifts my spirit, lifts my mood, and kind of gets me focused and centered on the day ahead. A lot of people from many different traditions do the same thing. They're aware that mood matters and that, more importantly, we can control that mood. Now, this research here suggests that music can do the same thing. Very, very interesting how this kinetic idea where music, what they're discovering is that music that tends, the songs that come on where you just tap your foot, you don't even know you're doing it, that kind of thing. You see it all the time. People just, tapping their foot, or they're bobbing their head a little bit, or rolling their shoulders. They're dancing in their chair. They don't realize they're doing it because the music is having their brain, giving their brain a kinetic response, which he's describing as groovy, which I love. I love that. So this is interesting to me. When I used my head, I love the science here. It's fascinating, but what I don't love, is, I'm careful here. All right, I'm trying to process this, but then after I thought about it, I went ahead and wrote it down because I think I'm right. What I don't love is the earphone/earbud culture. Okay, I mean, we've seen them. There are people that literally wear earbuds all the time. They accessorize. They put on their watch, they put on their, jewelry, if you will, and then, they get dressed, and then earbuds go in. They're not always on, but they're in all the time. And a lot of times they'll use them for phone calls and listening to podcasts and music or whatever, what have you. And then there are the people that wear the earmuffs, earphones everywhere, Bluetooth earphones, Dr. Dre Beats or whatever whatever. You see those people and they've got them on all the time. It's a permanent accessory, and they do this because they use their device, their phone's in their pocket, Bluetoothed in, and they can talk on the phone, they can do everything and stay upbeat and productive, and that's what they tell their boss. Remember Office Space? I was told that I could listen to the radio at a reasonable volume. Well, you can put on the headphones and listen at whatever volume, and you tell your boss, I'm more productive. Look at the numbers. And the boss says, yeah, you are. Keep listening. You're not bothering anybody. The problem is this. Okay. It shuts out reality. It shuts out reality. We touched on this last week when we were talking about the whole DoorDash thing and how people just don't want to be in the world anymore. They don't want to be in society. It's painful to some people. Some people think that everyone's oppressive. Some people think that everyone is off their nut, and people isolate. We have lost community in many, many ways. And it's cancerous to the culture because culture is based on community. If you don't interact with other people, you become very isolated. All right. You lose empathy, and it's not good. We were designed by our Creator to live in community. Reality, no matter how stressful or unpleasant, is where we must live if we are to remain human. That was the key note that I jotted down. All right. You cannot isolate yourself from the rest of the world. And I'm not talking about, if you're in school and you're going to study and you find that your study goes a lot better, is more pleasant with a little music. That's different. I'm talking about the people that habitually isolate their ears from the world. Okay. And you see them, they walk around with these things on all the time. If we're going to remain human, we can't do that. We have to be in the culture. We have to learn how to live in the culture. Perhaps learn how to live in the culture again, if we've forgotten how. Shutting it out is the proverbial ostrich with head in sand. All right. The ostrich, when it feels stressed or anxious or afraid, buries its head in the sand. It's like the child that has a nightmare, and mommy comes in and says, if we think real hard, the monster will go away. That's fine for a little kid because the dream isn't real. Reality is real. And if we think real hard, it will not go away. We need to live in it. Shutting it out like an ostrich is not the way to go. Balance is needed. Okay. I mean, look, if you just can't work, can't study, can't find peace, can't function, can't feel good about yourself, can't have a decent self-esteem, there's an issue that needs to be addressed there. Okay. There's balance in all things. We've got to find a way to find community again. And look, I have struggled with anxiety throughout my life. Okay. So I know from whence I speak. You start slowly. Okay. I am extremely anxious when I go to mixers or parties. I'm terrified. Will I measure up? Do I belong here? All those feelings. And I'm willing and I'm open with that stuff because that's part of how you cope with it. You find strength in community. You're not the only one. And I think that is so very important. So Look, if you're an earbud or earphone person, that's fine, but make sure you're not leaning on it and shutting yourself into your own little world, which really isn't real and doesn't exist. That was what I came up with when I used my head. Our half hour is done. Thank you so much for being with us. Happy April to you. We'll see you in a week, Lord willing. I'm John McClain from Dallas. This is the Use Your Head podcast. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.